Hello everyone, this is your friend from Naruto Audio Fanfics, and we are back once again with a brand new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto entered the Galactic Combat Racing Tournament? Naruto times Hinata times Sakura times Ino times Tenten times Tamari times Yugito times Samui, Combat Racing O, Adventure and Romance Part 1. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to hit the like button, thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel for more amazing Naruto fanfics like this. So without wasting any more time, let's start today's fanfic. In the year of 2020, mankind learned a simple truth. They were not alone in this universe. With the discoveries of other world portals, people have taken to call gates, have allowed human advancements to be made. But these gates acted as also means to meet people from other worlds. Travel to these worlds using space rockets would take years to reach, but thanks to the gates, it has made it a whole lot easier. Many feared the people that came out from the other end of the gates. In order to prevent an all-out war between countless worlds, a truce was established. Instead of killing each other and seeing how much blood soaks the soils, they will race. By racing, they came to agreements. But this form of racing isn't a normal race of speed. Combat racing was thus invented. The usage of weapons and along with speed came into effect. And funny enough, the crowds that watched these races enjoyed the sight of watching a race car go up in flames. These race cars were also named accordingly. No longer were they called that, but they were called sprinters. Although these races have managed to bring about peace in the worlds and the known universe, many still choose to up the bets, such as slavery. But we have been able to live peacefully with our neighbors, droned the teacher as a young man with sun-kissed long blonde hair lay his head on his desk in the back row, his one hand up as he repeatedly pressed the button on his clutch pencil. The year 2020 happened 37 years ago. Now it was 2057. Much has changed. He was 17 years old now, wondering what he was going to do with his life. It certainly wasn't going to be spent sitting in a classroom listening to shit he will never remember later on. Oh right, he couldn't escape either. This was also a boarding school, fenced off from the rest of Japan and very much off the coast of Japan. He wasn't enrolled here. He was dumped here, abandoned by his own mother. He could still remember that fateful day he came to resent his mother, but also wanting to be with her. A love-hate relationship it would seem. Flashback. It was a cold rainy day when he was taken to the school. His mother's face torn in bitter sadness. The trees lined the sides of the cruiser as they drove to the massive steel door of the school. Honor High was what it was called. "Mommy, where are we going?" asked the young child no older than 6 years old. His mother stayed quiet as she made the cruiser go slightly faster. Once they pulled up, the doors opened up and showed two people standing there. One smiled to the child as they both got out the cruiser. "Welcome to Honor High. We've been expecting you," said the one, the voice domineering and cold. Little Naruto cringed in fear as he hid behind his mother. "You must go with them," said Kushina as she shoved Naruto to their arms. "But mommy," cried the young boy as he watched his mother climb back into the car and start it up. "Mommy," cried Naruto, breaking from their grips and banging on the door to the driver's seat. The window slowly slid down. Kushina not even looking to her son. "Mommy can't take care of you anymore. Mommy's too busy," said Kushina as she stepped on the gas. The cruiser taking off and leaving poor Naruto to run after the cruiser, crying out for his mother while trying to catch up to the cruiser. His little legs doing little to catch the speeding cruiser. "Moom why," cried Naruto. Flashback end. Opening his eyes as he heard the bell ring, Naruto made his way to the one spot he knew. This school also allowed the students to accumulate points by doing well on tests and sports. Naruto's points on his academics was close to zero, but his points from the sports were sky high. He more went for the athletics, archery and weapons. Not to mention hand-to-hand combat such as judo, mixed martial arts, kendo and various other form of combat. His points allowed him to purchase a garage and also allowing him to purchase parts for a sprinter. He had a design in mind. Most of the parts he built from scratch. Reaching the garage he owned, he unlocked the shutter door and pushed it up. The light from outside pushing back the darkness and revealing the only occupant inside. An unfinished sprinter covered by a white cloth. Standing upon a lift like a ghost, waiting to be uncovered. Setting his bag down, he grabbed the cloth and pulled it off. The sprinter was absolutely gorgeous. The engine Naruto designed and built himself. Small thrusters lay behind the sprinter, each containing enough firepower to go Mach 3. 2 were mounted in total. So that alone was enough to go Mach 6. Of course the amount of G-force generated would render someone unconscious. But Naruto ensured the interior would remove something like that entirely. Stabilizers were found under the sprinter along with terrain correctors, allowing the sprinter to adjust to the type of terrain with little hassle. Panels that would open lay on the sides of the hood and the top. The overall color was jet black. The interior was the pride and joy. When entering the sprinter, one would feel like they stepped into a spaceship. Consoles and buttons lined the dashboard and gearbox. It was amazing. A massive throttle lay just ahead of the gearbox. Switching on the radio in the garage as he grabbed a wrench, Naruto went to work as he popped the hood. Quote. And in other news, Blake, perfect, Belladonna has just won her 39th race, making her the newest winner of the Galactic Grand Prix, and the first of the cat people to do so. Many of her fans showered her with praise as she did a victory lap, celebrating her winning at her hometown beyond the gates. Working ruthlessly on the engine he had made, he tightened and screwed the bolts of the engine, attaching wires to terminals and consoles. But as he worked, a girl his age with pink hair and green eyes walked in holding a brown package. "Yo, Naruto," she called. Setting the wrench down on the side of the hood, Naruto turned to her. "Sakura, nice to see you," said Naruto as he walked over to her. "Likewise. Your package came in," said Sakura handing the parcel over to Naruto. Unwrapping it, Naruto smiled as he looked at the component in the box. "Perfect. This is exactly what I needed. Thanks," said Naruto taking the component and making his way back to his sprinter. "Still tinkering on your toy, I see," said Sakura making her way to the racer. "Damn straight. And this is no toy. Sprinters are racers of death," retorted Naruto. "Whatever," said Sakura as she saw Naruto place in the component. "So what is that component?" "A reactor. Using fuel would not even get this thing off the ground. Thank goodness for the gates for advancing technology. With this reactor, this baby will be able to achieve its top speed," said Naruto. "And what is the top speed?" asked Sakura, wondering about the sprinter. "Without the boosters, 1800 kph. With boosters, Mach 7, said Naruto, shocking Sakura. "And just boosters?" asked Sakura. "Mach 6. Was Naruto only reply, finally getting the reactor in. Cleaning his hands, he opened the door and switched on the sprinter. The consoles lit up as the speedometer's pointers lit up along with the discs, doing a small animation sequences as the sprinter slowly switched on. "Cross your fingers," said Naruto as he moved a finger to the stop-start button. Sakura stepped back, not wanting to be in the range of this monster. Taking a breath as he readied himself, Naruto hit the button and the roar of the sprinter drummed inside the garage. The sprinter's stabilizers soon came online and the sprinter hovered for a bit. Setting the lift down, Naruto drove it out the garage. Revving the sprinter a few times, Naruto began a systems check. Hydrogen levels, 99%. Fluids, 100%. Thrusters and stabilizers, 45% and climbing. Error of fault, within acceptable ranges. All's good, said Naruto with Sakura making her way to the door. "Guess this is it," she said with Naruto nodding. "Guess so," replied Naruto. "See you on TV," said smiled. "Damn straight. And give my regards to your boyfriend for me," smiled Naruto with Sakura going red. Sasuke is not my boyfriend. She hissed. I'm sure. Was all Naruto said as he floored it. The sprinter lunged forward, a bit of dust being kicked up as the sprinter surged forth. Sirens blared around the school as Naruto zipped around buildings. Teachers and other staff members tried to stop the sprinter that had been built without them knowing. The gate of the school was just ahead. But it was just so high up. And right before the gates of the school was the headmaster. A ruler in his hand as he glared at the incoming sprinter. Stop that sprinter this instant, he shouted. Naruto merely grabbed the throttle and pushed it forward. The boosters came online as they opened up and spat purple fire. The speed of the sprinter increased as Naruto neared the gate at incredible speeds. Seeing that the sprinter may crash into the gate, the headmaster jumped out the way. Pulling the handbrake up, the sprinter used the stabilizers and shot the sprinter high into the air. So much that the sprinter would make it over the gate. Turning the sprinter slightly to let the headmaster see who it was, Naruto smiled to the man as he flipped him the middle finger. Cheers bitches. I am outta here, cheered Naruto as the sprinter flew over the gate. Landing on the other side, Naruto turned the racer and looked at the school he had just broken out of. Smiling at his accomplishment, Naruto hit the gas and the sprinter launched off. Reaching into his jacket, Naruto looked at the picture. It showed him when he was younger. His mother Kushina and his father. Folding the picture and placing it in his pocket, he drove to the one spot he knew. I'm coming, mother. And we're going to sort this shit out, said Naruto as he drove. Thank God Naruto installed a satnav in the sprinter. Or else he'd be really lost. He knew of the company his mother ran. Whirlpool was what it was called. His sprinter was really an eyesore on every single person he passed. Every single person marveled at the elegant design and speed the sprinter had. Many had taken a few photos of the sprinter as it zipped past them, uploading them onto social media to show to others. Naruto didn't care. All he had on his mind was to get to Whirlpool. You've reached your destination, came the voice of the satnav as Naruto pulled up to the race circuit and to the boom gate. Winding down the window, Naruto looked to a security guard who was currently in the middle of reading a newspaper. Hello, called Naruto to the security guard. The guard looked to the man in the car with bored eyes. Looking at the driver and then to the car, he set the paper down. Reasons for visit, called the guard in a bored monotone. Here to see the head of Whirlpool, was Naruto's only reply. Here for the tryouts then, said the guard opening the gate. Enjoy your visit. He could at least put a bit more oomph into his job, was all Naruto said to himself as he drove the sprinter into the race circuit. Switching the sprinter off and climbing out the car, Naruto breathed in the air of the circuit track. The smell of oil, the burning of thrusters, the echoing roars of sprinters screaming in the garages being tested was absolutely amazing. Locking the sprinter, Naruto began his walk. Finding the offices of Whirlpool rather easily, Naruto made his way to the receptionist desk. Hello. Welcome to Whirlpool. Are you here to see someone? Asked the receptionist with a smile that made Naruto a little worried that this woman had taken too much coffee to be so happy. I'm here to see the head of Whirlpool, Kushina Uzumaki, was all Naruto said. Ah, you must be here for the tryouts. May I have your name? She asked. Trailed Naruto. Maybe it would be a good idea to surprise her. My name isn't this, I'm actually your son. Surprise. Type of thing. My name is Chain Amamiya, was all Naruto said. Thank you, sir. Please follow me, said the receptionist getting up and leading Naruto along. Following the hyper woman, Naruto walked along the tiled floors of the offices and came to a halt shortly after at a door with the words, Facility Head, on the plaque of the door. Please wait here, said the receptionist. Watching her walk away, Naruto leaned against the wall before pulling out his phone. Taking a look at his appearance, he found he still looked like he did way back then. but the whisker marks on his cheeks were so faint they looked to be almost non-existent. Nothing like when he was a child. Oh well. The door clicked open and a red-haired woman in a black business suit stood in the doorway. Who are you? She spat. I'm. You know what? I don't give a shit on who you are actually. Whoever you are not my problem. You're gonna have to deal with Samui, Whirlpool's manager, hissed Kushina as she went to close the door. I'm here for the tryouts, blurted Naruto, making Kushina stop. Kushina stopped then and there as she looked to Naruto. Sizing him up, she merely scolded him. If you can't drive, you were never meant to be here. This is no place for arrogant shits like you, she growled. I have my own sprinter. And for your information, I am probably the best there is, shot back Naruto in anger. How dare his own mother treat him this way? Really, I have 17 sprinters, and trained some of the best race drivers there were. So if you're not here for the tryouts, then go home. If so, get your sorry to the track, spat Kushina as she slammed the door in Naruto's face. What the? Was all Naruto could say as he walked back to his sprinter. Seeing a woman with black hair and a rather amazing figure looking at his sprinter, Naruto arched an eyebrow. Walking over to the well-endowed woman, Naruto coughed a bit. The woman turned to Naruto. Her emerald eyes were absolutely amazing to look at. Is this your sprinter? She asked. It is, replied Naruto with a nod. So you must be here for the tryouts, said the woman. Sure replied Naruto. Be warned, Kushina doesn't like people who are arrogant. If you can't back it up, you're gone, stated the woman. Duly noted, chimed Naruto. Name's Shizuka Nadeshiko, she said, smiling while holding out a hand. Chain Amamiya, said Naruto, clearly sticking to his alias. Nice to meet you. Well, better get moving, said Shizuka, running back to the garages. Climbing into his sprinter, Naruto started it up and drove to the track. Once he arrived, he powered down the stabilizers and set the sprinter down. Kushina made her way to the control room and set up a connection to the sprinter on the track. Listen carefully, short stack. You will judged on 2 things. Number 1. Reflexes. Number 2. Speed. Finish the course in the time given and you will have earned your spot as a Whirlpool racer, hissed Kushina. Got it, said Naruto as he got the sprinter back into a hovering position. The only thing beyond him was a silver archway that activated to reveal a portal. There was no mistaking it. It was a man-made gate. The other side of the gate was going to be his track. Tightening his grip on the steering wheel, Naruto began to tap the accelerator. The sprinter's engines drummed on the track. Ready, came an artificial voice. Go. And Naruto was off. The sprinter launched forward and straight into the gate. As the sprinter came out on the other end, Naruto's eyes widened as he looked to find a fiery magma rock coming towards him. Shit, was all Naruto as he swerved, narrowly missing the rock. The terrain was like nothing he had ever seen before. A massive pool of lava was seen on his right. Rocks and debris littered the left and some rather nasty-looking cliffs before him. Let's see how you fare, came Kushina's voice as she smiled. Child's play, said Naruto as he grabbed the throttle. Thrusting it forward, the sprinter's thrusters opened up and spat purple fire, launching the machine at astronomical speeds. From the control booth, Kushina's eyes slightly widened at the display of speed. He's quick. What speed is he going? Asked Kushina, looking at an operative. Speed is Mach 2 and climbing. It was like this sprinter was built for speed, said the operative. How can he withstand all those Gs? Wondered Kushina as Naruto made the jump and landed on the other side. Disengaging the boosters, Naruto slammed on the brakes. Several flaps opened up and stopped the sprinter for a bit, but just enough to get the machine under control. Looking to how much time he had left and to find him close to halfway, Naruto smiled. This is going to be a cakewalk, he chimed. Don't get short stack, said Kushina. Driving into a cave, Naruto switched on the lights only to find himself in a trap. Falling rocks were everywhere. Before him, behind him, and the sides of him were completely fenced off. There was only one way. Forward. But the rocks crashing down in front were blocking his escape route very fast. Smiling as he reached for the throttle again, he licked his lips. He threw the throttle forward. The boosters once again came online and the sprinter surged forth within such speed it looked to be a blur on the screens. Zipping between falling rocks, Naruto used every bit of skill he had learnt during those fast-paced mixed martial arts classes. It looked like he may actually make it out of this. But he never intended for a rock to fall right at the moment he was heading for the finish. Seeing the incoming threat, Naruto yanked the wheel. The sprinter swerved and skidded, but what happened next shocked everyone. Naruto yanked up the handbrake and the sprinter was hurled into the air. The sprinter rolled in the air as it tossed and turned. A ballerina in the air. So graceful and elegant as it flew over the falling rock. Kushina's eyes widened along with the operatives. But one saved the data onto her phone and decided to upload it onto social media. This was surely going to get everyone's attention. A new sprinter comes in and demonstrates amazing abilities. Like never seen before. Not even the famed Yellow Flash could pull those moves. The sprinter came out the man-made gate and came to a grinding halt. The boosters smoked as Naruto slouched in the driver's seat. He was smiling from ear to ear. "Moments like these make me feel so alive," was all Naruto said as he opened the door and looked to the smoking boosters. "I'll have to get that sorted out. May have slightly burnt a coil or two." Kushina smiled. She had never seen that type of driving ever since her husband died. And ever since she could remember from 12 years ago things went downhill for Whirlpool. They had been on the decline. Her racing managing days were numbered. They were going to pull the plug on her. She wanted the best there was to bring back the glory of Whirlpool. And she may have found her driver. This one individual, this single person, was what she was looking for. He could handle himself under pressure and knew what to do in tight situations. Able to adapt to every challenge sent his way. He was perfect. He was a demon, said Kushina as she folded her arms. Huh? Asked an operative. That man is a demon, said Kushina walking off. What do we tell the rookie? Asked another operative. Tell him to be here 7 a.m. sharp. He's hired, said Kushina walking off. When Naruto learned he had a job at Whirlpool, he was happy yet frustrated at the same time. He felt happy due to him being able to work with the passion he had. Frustrated because he was working with his mother who didn't even know it was him at all. It was a rather bitter pill to swallow seeing that Kushina didn't even know who he was. Oh well. Pulling up to the tracks, Naruto sat in the sprinter as he listened to the engine idle. Doing a systems check, he ensured the sprinter was firing at 100%. A few minutes later, Kushina came on the screen in the center console. Morning chain. Today we're going to see about your weapons. Every sprinter must be able to shoot. Due to the whole combat racing, if you can't shoot, you're dead, said Kushina. I got it, said Naruto as he started rev the engine a bit. We're not going to send you through another gate today. Instead, you're going to do it around this track, stated Kushina. Copy, replied Naruto as he grabbed the wheel. Ready, came the artificial voice. Revving the sprinter a few times, Naruto prepared himself. Go. And the sprinter surged forward. The car's engine screaming as it sped around the track. Seeing a few drones show up in front of him, Naruto pressed a button on the side of the steering wheel. 2 miniguns came out from the panels and instantly opened fire on the drones that sped across the track. 2 were taken out before Naruto had to take a corner. Slamming on the brakes and drifting the sprinter, Naruto fired again. Another 2 drones went up in flames. In the control booth, Kushina looked at the new racer. Hurling himself around the track as if it were nothing. Taking down drones left and right. His guns blazing as he opened fire in short bursts here and there. Incredible. He's actually doing well, said Kushina, amazed at the speed and accuracy of Naruto. Switching weapons, Naruto pressed a button on the center console and the miniguns retreated back into the sprinter. Pulling out what looked to be missile pods, Naruto took aim again. The first missile was launched and the drone in front was taken out with little hassle. But Naruto was getting fed up. This was getting rather boring. Grabbing the throttle, he threw the sprinter forward and collided with the last drone. The drone exploded as Naruto drove off, flames licking his car but were extinguished in the rushing air on the car. Alright Chain. That does it for today. Bring your sprinter in and tune it a bit. As well go see Shizune for a checkup. All sprinter drivers must have their data logged. Things like stress tests and the like. Don't worry, no needles, said Kushina. Copy, said Naruto as he slowed down the sprinter and pulled over at the garages. Climbing out the sprinter, Naruto popped the hood and grabbed a wrench. Tightening a few bolts on the engine, Naruto worked on his ride. Seeing the bolts now tightened, he opened up a few of the components and ensured they were all running smoothly. He didn't even need help, but he ensured the sprinter was running how he wanted it to run. The sprinter was obviously designed by him, but he knew if they tampered with his ride, they'd end up making it go up in flames. It was only designed for him. That's what made it so unique. After the tuning up of his sprinter, Naruto entered. He locked the sprinter and walked into the office part of the track. Getting directions from the receptionist, Naruto moved to the nurse's room. Knocking on the door and entering when he was told to, Naruto found a nurse with black hair and black eyes wearing a lab coat. You must be the new racer. Chain Amamiya. Name's Shizune. Nice to meet you, said the woman smiling to him. Likewise, replied Naruto sitting down on the bed. I'll just be putting these electrodes on you and this brainwave manipulator. This will stimulate stress levels. First we'll start with low, then move up, said Shizune as she attached some electrodes to Naruto's arms. Closing his eyes as he lay down, Shizune began to crank up the simulation. Taking note of his brainwave patterns, starting with the normal stress, she found no changes. Cranking it up to moderate, she was rather surprised to only see a minor shift in brainwaves and heartbeat. But when she cranked it up to full blast, what she saw astounded her. Naruto's heartbeat and his breathing hitched but then dropped so rapidly. As if his body was able to adapt so easily. You may take off the helmet, said Shizune with Naruto doing just that. But when he opened his eyes, Shizune was rather frightened. She clearly remembered him having ocean blue eyes. But for a single second, they were a dangerous red. As if the devil dwelled within him. You may leave. Thanks, said Naruto as he got up, took off the electrodes and headed out the door. What was that? Asked Shizune to herself. With his checkup now done, Naruto climbed back into his sprinter and drove out of Whirlpool race circuits. A calming drive would do him some good. Moving at amazing speeds, Naruto made his way to the mountain range and came to a stop before climbing out and sitting on the hood of the sprinter. Gazing at the city as the sun passed over the city, he looked down and reached into his pocket. Pulling out the picture and looking to his mother in the picture, he clenched his teeth. Why did it have to turn out this way? He said to himself. Hopefully tomorrow he would be able to do his best. He was hoping for at least a first race. He wasn't just aiming to win a race. He was aiming for the biggest race of them all. The Galactic Grand Prix. Every single racer in the entire universe was going to be there. He remembered from when he was still at the boarding school, how he skipped class and watched the 25th Galactic Grand Prix live on his phone. It was absolutely amazing to watch. It was also the catalyst that caused him to not just watch the Galactic Grand Prix, but to be a part of it as well. So many people watched it. So many people with expectations of the outcome on the races. So many fans screaming the names of their favorite sprinter and racer. Every time he closed his eyes, he imagined himself on that racetrack. The crowd cheering his name. How he raced with lightning on his side and how he won the Galactic Grand Prix Cup. It sent shivers down his spine every time he thought about it. Now that he was a racer and part of a company that does racing, he will do everything he can to make that dream a reality. Nothing will stop him now from achieving his goals. Nothing. On planet Gaia, in a large magnificent castle resting in the center of a massive city. Water streaming along the sides of the castle and into pools at the bottom. Rested a woman who was extremely well endowed for her figure. She was rather voluptuous, beautiful and beyond anything, a goddess. Her black hair fell to her calves and had what looked like small vines in her hair. She could be seen sitting on a throne in the center of the castle. The feeling of her was quite remarkable. Her emerald eyes were captivating. Her clothes bordered from sultry to serious with no straps holding up the dress. It just hung there, including a wonderful pleasing view of her chest and a lot of cleavage. She held out her hand and snapped her fingers. A portal-type mirror opened up and displayed Naruto as he gazed off into the distance. The woman licked her lips as she looked at the man in the portal. For a human, you are rather pleasing to look at. As Queen of the Fae, it is my duty to secure a strong person for the securing of the line to the throne. And the men of my world don't seem to cut it. She spoke. Her voice as smooth as silk along with what could be a demanding side mixed in as well. I've been to your world a few times. The men there are the same as the ones here. But you on the other hand. You intrigue me. Despite the elders demanding I marry someone. But they didn't tell me I can't marry someone of another race. Looking out to the window of her throne room, she smiled as she licked her lips. I can't wait for the 40th Galactic Grand Prix. Then I can meet you at last. My dear Naruto Uzumaki. Titania, Queen of the Fae, will ensure you become my king. And I'll be your queen. I will take care of you. She purred as she waved her hand and got up from her throne. She'd have to make massive preparations before she met with Naruto. The one she had her eyes on. Nothing will stop her from claiming Naruto as her king and husband. Nothing. The merely thought of her and a human having half-bred children was rather something she found seductive. So much that she wanted the Galactic Grand Prix to hurry up. The next one would only be happening in 3 months' time. She remembered the recording of the 39th Galactic Grand Prix. Hal Blake. Perfect. Belladonna won that one. I'm coming. She said as she walked off. Welcome race fans to another show of high stakes, high-speed racing. As always, yours truly, Rush Blitz, will be giving you a front row seat to all the action. As we cover all the thrills, chills and spills. This Sports Hawk News. Coming to you live from the Shinjuku race track in Japan. Stay tuned. And keep those engines hummin', said the announcer on the TV as Kushina switched it off and turned to the rookie sitting opposite her. The first race. Was all Naruto said, feeling his heart racing. This will be your first ever race with other racers. They don't call it combat racing for nothing. Every single person on the track will have weapons and they won't be afraid to use them, said Kushina in a stern voice. I got it, said Naruto. I would wish you good luck. But frankly, the odds of seeing you in a fireball are extremely high. But I'll say this. Go out there, and win. No matter what, said Kushina, stressing the last thing she said. Got it, said Naruto, getting up and heading out the door into his sprinter. Walking along, Naruto clenched his teeth in rage. Does she have that much faith in me? I'd wish you luck, but you will most likely be a fireball. Thanks, Mom, hissed Naruto. Making his way to the truck that transported his sprinter, Naruto climbed onto the ramp and looked at the other trucks also getting out the sprinters they were carrying. Many of the racers looked seasoned and well-versed than him. They had years of experience under their belts. Naruto had zilch. All he ever did was shoot some drones and win a timed lap. What did he have against them? He'd have to be careful. There was no telling what would happen. Seeing a reporter moving to him, Naruto put his game face on. This is Eva Lockhart, coming to you live from the Shinjuku race track. Even though eyes are on all the racers there are, some are pointing at the newcomer. A sprinter driver who we have never seen before. All we have is his name. Chain Amamiya. Ah, there he is, said the reporter as they made their way to him. Mr. Amamiya, can you tell us anything relating to what you're feeling? Asked the reporter, shoving a mic in Naruto's face. Nothing much. Other than I built my sprinter from scratch. I feel that racing is in my blood and that it is my destiny to win the 40th Galactic Grand Prix, was all Naruto said. You heard it here, folks. Chain Amamiya, the underdog racer hired by the underdog company Whirlpool. Will he win first place here and be one step closer to his goal? Or will he end up on a hospital bed while his sprinter lays on the track in a fireball? Stay tuned. Back to you, Blitz, said the reporter, moving on. Climbing into his sprinter and starting it up as the sounds of engines roared throughout the track, Naruto clenched his teeth as he pulled up onto the track. His car sitting on the right, behind another sprinter. Moving his hands on the wheel, Naruto looked at the photo in his pocket and kissed it. Doing this for you, Pops, said Naruto as two announcers showed up on a screen hovering over a silver archway. Welcome, racers. As we all know, racing was the sole purpose of this until combat racing came in. Race well, fight hard, and more importantly, win by any means, said the announcers as three lights came online. The first lit up and all sprinters went into a hovering position. Naruto brought his sprinter up as well. The archway came online and opened a gate to where they'd be racing. Naruto's heart raced, his blood quickening through his veins. Sweat beaded down his brow as he revved the sprinter. The second light came online as the sprinters got ready. This was it. Do or die time. A gunshot was heard and the sprinters were off. Naruto slammed on the gas and his sprinter surged forth. The organized mass of cars turned into a clutter of metal. Dashing forth to the gate that lay before them. Naruto was boxed in, however. Finally getting through the gate, Naruto found himself on what seemed to be a farmland. What could this be? Why were they here? The shots of a machine gun broke him from these thoughts as he got back to the task at hand. The car way ahead went up in flames. Wake up, rookie, barked Kushina coming up on the console of the sprinter. I know, barked Naruto, turning a corner and taking aim. Pick up the pace. You're in 6th place, growled Kushina. Copy, hissed Naruto as he stepped on the gas harder. The sprinter roared ahead as another sprinter before him came up. You're mine, said Naruto, bringing up the miniguns. Firing at the sprinter, Naruto hit one of the thrusters and the sprinter was sent hurtling to a herd of what could be cows. 1 down, 4 to go, said Naruto as he stepped on it. From the control booth, Kushina had her teeth clenched. Despite the speed Naruto's sprinter had, she felt that he was still way behind. Sure, he was now in 5th place, he still had a lot of ground to cover. Naruto could feel the tension his mother was bearing on him. Shifting gear using the paddles on either side of the car, Naruto drifted the corner and came to the sight of another sprinter. Nice knowing you, said Naruto, switching the miniguns for the missiles. Firing 2 at the sprinter, Naruto watched as the sprinter throw itself into the air and take out the sprinter that was right in front. Naruto's eyes widened at the ingenuity but cursed his luck for missing. I'll get you next time, he hissed as he grabbed the throttle and pushed it forward. The sprinter roared with fury as it sped with even greater speed than normal as it began to catch up. But ahead of them was a cave. Bringing the boosters offline, Naruto switched on the lights and entered the cave. The sounds of gunfire and explosions rippled ahead of him as the broken pile of a sprinter came up. Narrowly dogging it, Naruto spotted a sprinter ahead. Lining up his shot, he fired once again. And this time, the sprinter went up in a ball of fire. Take that, bitch, cackled Naruto as he zoomed past. Chain, you got incoming, said an operative. Spotting a missile heading straight for his sprinter, Naruto pressed a button and flares were released while Naruto used the sprinter's stabilizers to shoot the sprinter into the air. He narrowly missed the missile as the incoming threat went after the flares. Phew, close one, said Naruto as he pushed the throttle forward and the boosters came online as they exited the tunnel. Passing another sprinter, Naruto found himself in 3rd. Top 3. Damn good going. But he wanted first. He wanted it. And he wanted it now. So much that Naruto gritted his teeth and reached under the steering wheel and pulled a lever. The entire console where the throttle was opened up and revealed a new throttle. But was locked down by a red button. He was sucker for the cliches. Warning. Hyperdrive active. Are you sure you wish to continue? Came a synthetic female voice in the sprinter. I am, replied Naruto, pressing the red button, releasing the lockdown on the throttle. The new throttle popped out of place and was ready. Hyperdrive throttle released, said the synthetic voice. Grabbing the throttle, Naruto gulped the lump in his throat. He did install the hyperdrive module, but he never tested it. Well, here goes nothing, said Naruto, pushing the throttle forward. The sprinter's boosters opened up, but instead of purple fire, blue fire erupted out of it. The sprinter screamed ahead as fast as it could go, the sound barrier breaking in the process as it zoomed ahead of the pack. Speeds never thought possible as the sprinter boosted ahead of the leader, putting Naruto into first. The finish line coming up. He couldn't let up now. He probably knew that when he took the sprinter out of hyperdrive the engines may stall. He couldn't have that. He couldn't risk such a huge disadvantage. Come on, snarled Naruto, keeping his hand on the hyperdrive. Warning. Engine and reactor temperature rising beyond recommended parameters. Stall imminent detected. Come on. Almost there. Barked Naruto. Engine stall in 5, 4, 3. Shi-t-t-t-t-t-t-t-t, was all Naruto could say as the finish line came up. 100 meters. 50 meters. 25 meters. Just as his sprinter made it over the line and came to a stop outside the gate on the other end and slowing down around the circuit, Naruto's sprinter finally gave in. The engine stalled and the sprinter dropped like a rock and skidded across the track. Naruto clenched his teeth as he listened to the screeching of the paint in the sprinter. Finally coming to a stop, Naruto sat there completely blown away. The other racers zoomed past him as they came second and third. Then more and more of the remaining sprinters zoomed past as well. Smoke coming out from under the hood of the sprinter. The crowd was silent as they looked at the live footage on the screens of Naruto still in the sprinter, anxiously waiting to see if he was okay. Finally getting his nerves under control, Naruto opened the door and got out. As soon as he stood out of the sprinter, the crowd went wild. Amazed by what he had achieved, Naruto looked about him and watched and listened to the people cheering for him. Chain, 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 they chanted as they continued their praise. Naruto's heart raced from the adrenaline and the recognition of the crowd. Looking down, he smiled as he clenched his fists. Throwing a fist into the air, the crowd cheered even louder. Well done, my fiancé, came a voice in his head. Dropping his fist down as the people still cheered at the same pitch, Naruto turned his head in every direction, trying to find who said that. Looking to the end of the track by the fence stood a woman he never saw before. Her black hair flowing in the wind with green vines holding the hair back as her striking purple eyes gazed upon Naruto. Her body being so elegant and beautiful. It was like she was a goddess. Huh, was all Naruto said as the woman began to fade away. I cannot wait to meet you. And finally marry you, she said into his mind again as she vanished from sight. Kushina from inside the control booth was absolutely stunned. A part of her was rather happy. But a part of her was actually blown away. Blown away because her company finally had their first win. Happy because they got their first win after so many defeats. This meant that they finally cemented their chance to get back into the racing industry. At long last, after 10 years of crushing defeats, they finally had a shot at getting back into the business. It had been at least a day since Naruto won his first victory. And yet social media was still blowing up over his victory. Everywhere he looked, people were watching his race. People acting out his actions doing the race. It was incredible. Even when he left his apartment that was given to him by Whirlpool, a whole swarm of reporters and journalists were waiting for him, like a lamb to the slaughter, asking questions and various statements. Seeing that he damaged his sprinter after using the hyperdrive like that, he had to use public transport. And once again, the people on the bus were taking selfies with him. Even if he didn't want any part of it, they still took them. He went from zero to celebrity in only one race. He was hoping that it would blow over soon. Hopefully. Finally getting to Whirlpool, he made his way to the garage and found Shizuka working ruthlessly on his sprinter. The sounds of a ratchet spanner going off as parts were thrown out of the engine. Moving over to her, he looked to find the engine pieces laying about on the sprinter's hood interior. Ah, the celeb finally graces us with his presence. To what do I owe the visit? Teased Shizuka. Funny. But this is rather surprising. After just one race and they are raving over my victory. It's just beginner's luck. Said Naruto. They don't see it that way. Was all Shizuka said as she pulled out the reactor core for the sprinter. Why is this here? I needed that to get the sprinter off the ground. Was all Naruto said. I understand why. But this is what caused your sprinter to stall like it did. You should have had two of these. One for the engine and one for the hyperdrive and boosters. That is how your sprinter stalled. Because the sudden shift in power drove this into overload and caused the engine to heat up, stated Shizuka. Well, thanks, said Naruto with Shizuka remembering something. Ah, Kushina wants to see you. Something about you, said Shizuka with Naruto nodding his head and walking out the garage into the offices of Whirlpool. Getting to Kushina's office, Naruto knocked on the door. Come in, said Kushina on the other side. You wanted to see me? Asked Naruto opening to the door. Yes, Chain. Have a seat, said Kushina with Naruto sitting down after closing the door. What's this about? Asked Naruto. It's about you. I've placed you into the slots for the 40th Galactic Grand Prix, said Kushina with Naruto's eyes widening. I don't mean to sound selfish. But isn't that too soon? I mean, I just won a race. Beginner's luck, I guess. But throwing me into the deep end. I feel I'm not ready. Was all Naruto could say. I'll give you a brief history lesson, said Kushina clasping her hands together. Whirlpool was once the best racing company there ever was. People came to us instead of us going to them. The best sprinter driver was Minato, the yellow Fash, Namikaze. He participated in the 29th Galactic Grand Prix. And a few other Galactic Grand Prix. He was the best we had. Until an accident occurred 11 years ago. He was doing a race with another racer. Unfortunately, his sprinter wasn't tuned properly and the result ended in him ending up in a fireball. He died then and there. I'm sorry for your loss, said Naruto. He knew what she was talking about. He saw the race firsthand. He was at the track when he watched his father go up in flames. The memory still burning in his mind. He was only 6 when he lost his father. Ever since Minato died, our reputation took a plummet as well. People turned their backs on us. We began to be pushed to the back with every loss we had. For 10 years we've been on a losing streak. But thanks to your victory, we can get back in the spotlight. That is why I've put you down for the 40th Galactic Grand Prix happening soon, said Kushina. Correct me if I'm wrong. But didn't the 39th Galactic Grand Prix end already? Asked Naruto. Each world gets the opportunity to host the Galactic Grand Prix. The Galactic Grand Prix is held every few years. And when it does, each world hosts a portion of the Grand Prix. The one Blake won was held on her home planet, Remnant. This next one is held here on Earth. Why they change the number? I have no idea. Was all Kushina said. So you want me to race in the 40th Galactic Grand Prix? Just for Whirlpool to get back in the spotlight? Said Naruto. Yes, said Kushina. I got it. I'll do it, said Naruto with Kushina clapping her hands. Excellent. You will bring back the glory of Whirlpool, said Kushina dismissing Naruto only to stop him. You have a girlfriend? No, was all Naruto said. Find yourself one. Sleep with her. Impregnate her. Make babies with her. Did you know I once had a son? She said, making Naruto raise an eyebrow. No, I didn't. What is he like? Asked Naruto, trying to catch Kushina. I don't know. I haven't seen him. Been too busy with work. He should be your age by now, said Kushina with Naruto clenching his teeth. Well, I don't think he'd like you for not being there for him, hissed Naruto slamming the door. What was that about? thought Kushina, going back to her work. Storming down to the garage, Naruto kicked a component that accidentally hit Shizuka in the head. The black-haired beauty cursed as she rubbed the part that was hit. Naruto apologized for doing that and just sat there watching Shizuka work on his sprinter. When she finally stopped, she looked to find Naruto looking rather mad. "What's eating you?" asked Shizuka, wiping her hands with a cloth. "Nah, heard that my mom doesn't even know how I'm doing. Saying that she's too busy. Man alive, it drives me insane. Not being able to see me, growled Naruto only for Shizuka to think. "What was your father like?" asked Shizuka. "He was the best racer there was. A legend among sprinter drivers," said Naruto. "Do you know his nickname?" asked Shizuka, baiting Naruto. "He was called the Yell." "Hey, don't go poking your nose in other people's business," barked Naruto only for Shizuka's eyes to widen his shock and realization. "Oh my, you're Naruto Uzumaki, son to Kushina Uzumaki and Minato, the Yellow Flash, Namikaze. Holy shit," was all Shizuka could say before Naruto slammed a hand over her mouth and made a shish noise. "Shut up. Don't tell anyone about my true identity," barked Naruto with Shizuka nodding her head. Removing his hand from her mouth, Shizuka took a few breaths to calm herself. "So why you here? On the run?" asked Shizuka. "Something like that. Broke out of the boarding school my illustrious mother sent me to," was all Naruto said with a growl. "I'll keep your secret hidden. But on one condition," said Shizuka. "Name it," said Naruto. "I want you to pretend to be my boyfriend," said Shizuka. Naruto just stared blankly at what she just said. Processing it in his head, he began to think long and hard. Then it finally clicked. "Huh," was all he managed. "Come again. I didn't hear that," said Naruto, drilling his ear, thinking he heard something else due to shit being jammed in there. Shizuka merely shook her head. "I said for you to pretend to be my boyfriend. In exchange, I will keep your secret hidden," said Shizuka with Naruto thinking on this. "What happens if I refuse?" barked Naruto. "Then I post online that you're the son of Kushina Uzumaki and the Yellow Flash himself," sneered Shizuka, holding her phone up. "Damn it. You're blackmailing me," growled Naruto with Shizuka nodding her head. "Pretty much," was all Shizuka said. "Okay, fine. You win. I'll be your pretend boyfriend," said Naruto with Shizuka smiling. "Thank you," she said as she went to work on the sprinter by adding in 2 reactor cores rather than 1. As she worked on it, Naruto merely sat there. He was content with letting others work on his sprinter. But he preferred doing it himself. But as he watched Shizuka tinker with his racer, he thought of something. "Why would you need me to pretend to be your boyfriend?" asked Naruto with Shizuka finishing her work and putting the hood down as a sigh escaped her lips. "There is this guy. He asked me to join his crew when I was in high school. I refused, stating I want to be a doctor. He persisted and made my life a living hell. He spread rumors around the school, saying that I was a total and that I've slept with my male teachers just to get high grades. I was outcasted because of that. Deciding to vent some steam, I broke into my father's garage and found an unfinished car engine he was restoring. Grabbing a wrench, I went to beat the living shit out of the engine. But when I got to the car, I couldn't even do it. Instead, I began playing with the engine. When my father came home, he found the engine working and me very dirty from grease and oil. It was then that I decided to become a mechanic and work on the sprinters. It soon became my goal in life to be the one to say to others, 'You see that sprinter? I tuned up that baby.' But sadly, Mr. Jackass decided that I was his and his alone. So I told him I'm already seeing someone. I've told him that for a few years now. And now I want to put this to bed. So please be my pretend boyfriend," said Shizuka, clasping her hands and bowing to Naruto. "I already said I'd do it," said Naruto as he got into the sprinter and started it up. "Oh yeah, forgot to mention, he wants to meet you now," said Shizuka, climbing into the sprinter. "Oh shit. Fine," sighed Naruto with Shizuka smiling. Naruto had a feeling this was planned out by her. But oh well. This had to be done. One thing he knew he inherited from his father was the need to help others. The sprinter left Whirlpool and Shizuka gave Naruto directions on where these guys were. A few twists and turns, Naruto soon found driving into the lower class of the city. But the lower class came and then it was gone. And now they were in the red light district. This wasn't looking good. Trying his best to keep a low profile, Naruto followed the directions to where the man was waiting to meet Shizuka's boyfriend. It was already late afternoon. Naruto was not liking this one bit. Whether he looked to his left or right, he'd either find someone doing drugs, someone really high, or hookers picking up customers. "You sure this is the place?" asked Naruto with Shizuka looking to him. "I know how it looks. But trust me, this guy runs this place," said Shizuka pointing at a warehouse ahead. There it is. Swallowing down the lump in his throat, Naruto drove up to the warehouse only to find many people already waiting for them. Pulling up and switching off the sprinter, they got out. Why was Naruto stressing? He trained constantly, mastering every form of hand-to-hand combat there was. He shouldn't be nervous. Remembering something to calm him down, he calmed his mind with the technique. "Kokuyo's been waiting. He wants to know if you're willing to be with him at last," said one of the thugs only for Shizuka to latch onto Naruto. "Sorry, but as you can see I brought my boyfriend," she hissed. "We'll see if he can match up to Kokuyo. No one can beat the Tempest," cooed a second thug only for a man who looked to be in his late 20s coming out the warehouse. "So you must be the one who is Shizuka's boyfriend. A pleasure. But I play to win. How about a drag race? No weapons. Just pure speed. No boosters as well," said the man. "No one can beat Kokuyo in a drag race," cackled the thugs. "You're on," growled Naruto stepping forward. "Let's make this interesting. If I win, I get Shizuka," said Kokuyo, licking his lips as he looked Shizuka up and down and undressing her with his eyes. "If I win, you leave her alone for good," said Naruto. "Deal," said Kokuyo. A few minutes later, both sprinters pulled up to a piece of road that would be used for their race. A hooker was seen carrying 2 flares as she walked between the 2 cars. Tightening his grip on the wheel, Naruto got ready. A flare was pointed at him, and he revved the engine. A flare was pointed at Kokuyo. He did the same as Naruto. The flares went up, and then down. Naruto and Kokuyo both launched off at the same time. The sprinters howling and screaming at each other as they broke ahead from the ones watching. "Incredible. He's staying with Kokuyo. But he'll never win. Kokuyo knows these areas," said a thug as they watched the race. Naruto shifted gears as they rounded a corner, only to have Kokuyo slam his sprinter into Naruto's, making the sprinter collide against a wall. "What the?" spat Naruto as he saw Kokuyo zoom ahead. "One thing about the red light district. There are no rules," said Kokuyo over the comms. Clicking his tongue, Naruto shifted gears like a demon possessed him, ruthlessly catching up and using every trick he had at his disposal. There was one thing he had to worry about. The red light district was built close to a cliff, and they were headed straight to said cliff. A sharp turn was the only way to avoid falling to your death. But Naruto soon found Kokuyo slamming on the brakes. "Now's my chance," said Naruto as he increased speed and used his steering to drift ahead. "Got you," said Kokuyo as he increased speed and T-boned Naruto's sprinter. Pushing the sprinter to the cliff, Kokuyo cackled as he was about to finally have Shizuka to himself. Naruto for himself was trying to stop the sprinter from moving. Anti-grav thrusters were offline at the moment and to turn them on would take a while. He had to think fast. "Shizuka will be mine, and I'm going to ride her like you never could," cackled Kokuyo as he floored it. Grabbing the handbrake, Naruto pulled it up. And just at the last minute, Naruto's sprinter was hurled into the air. Kokuyo never expected that. Neither was it that he was the one going down the face of the cliff into a fiery death. The explosion rippled through the red light district. Anyone who was sleeping or doing something they shouldn't stopped and gazed at the smoking stream coming from the cliff. Naruto merely let his sprinter idle as he got out of it. Walking to the edge of the cliff, he found the smoldering wreckage of Kokuyo's sprinter while the charred body of its driver was seen. Racing like that was your downfall, stated Naruto before climbing in and driving off to Shizuka. Pulling up, he found Shizuka smiling to him. Once he was out the car, Shizuka hugged him and thanked him for not dying. The thugs were utterly shocked that Kokuyo lost. Not only that, but he was now dead. With their leader gone, they were nothing. Guess that calls it for tonight, said Naruto with Shizuka nodding her head. Climbing into the sprinter, they drove out the red light district. It was rather late and Naruto had a feeling that he had to get as much rest as he could. The 40th Galactic Grand Prix was no joking matter. The best racers in the entire galaxy were going to be there. To win in the Galactic Grand Prix means you're the best of the best. He had to have his senses as sharp as they could be. Pulling up to Shizuka's house much to her directions, Naruto drove up to the mansion-like house and stopped outside the garage doors. Getting out along with Shizuka, he watched Shizuka go up to the door. But she didn't enter the house. Walking back to Naruto, who was leaning against his sprinter, she did something Naruto never expected. Shizuka stood on her toes and gave Naruto a passionate kiss on the lips. Even though their charade was finished, she felt she should give him something to remember her by. Naruto was taken back by the kiss but kissed her back, his hands moving on their own and wrapped around her waist. Shizuka felt rather safe in his arms. Like she would always be protected by him if she was by his side. Breaking the kiss, Shizuka licked her lips, tasting the residual taste of Naruto's lips on her own. A smile and a blush crept onto her face as she started walking backwards. Thank you, Naruto, she purred before going into the house. Anytime, was all Naruto said, climbing back into his sprinter and driving back to his apartment. It had been 2 months since Naruto broke out of Honor High and began his career as a racer. For the company his mother runs. It felt extremely weird that he was working for his mother where she doesn't even know who you are. It was frustrating at first. But like all this, you get used to it. 2 months since Naruto created the fake name, Chain Amamiya. Thanks to everyone believing he was Chain and not Naruto, it was hard to remember who he was. The mask of Chain Amamiya was beginning to become part of him while the face of Naruto was becoming more and more like a distant memory. The only one to remind him of who he really was Shizuka. The mechanic of Whirlpool. Sighing as he watched the people flood into the stadium, he looked to the sky. The sounds of sprinter engines being fired up drummed in his ears. Reporters were raving about the topic of the 40th Galactic Grand Prix. How new racers would be making their appearance. Heading to his room in Whirlpool, he grabbed a remote and switched on the TV. Welcome race fans. Well, here we are. The 40th Galactic Grand Prix. Many of the best racers from across the galaxy will be making their appearance right here on Earth. Many have met their favorite racers. But all eyes are on the newcomer. Chain Amamiya. A man who came from humble beginnings to becoming one of the most esteemed racers on Earth. Having speed that the famed Yellow Flash couldn't even dream of. Skills that seem to defy the laws of physics. Accuracy that make even the most skilled sniper look like an amateur. Every single person across the globe have come to call him the Crimson Devil, a man with a death wish. With Whirlpool's name beginning to find traction, can Chain get this company back in the spotlight? Or will he watch his dreams end up in flames? Stay tuned, said the reporter with Naruto switching off the TV. Sitting down as he listened to his thunderous heart race, he clasped his hands in prayer. I will become the best. And surpass you, father, said Naruto as the door opened to reveal Samui. Samui and Naruto's relationship started on a rocky start due to Samui thinking Naruto used his skills in a reckless manner. But she found that it was just his racing style. Eventually she found that the crowd loved his racing ability and wanted more. She accepted this and gave Naruto full control on how he races. She even began to develop feelings for the young racer. Ready for your first Galactic Grand Prix? She asked. Sure, replied Naruto, getting up. Then let's get going. They've mixed it up this time. So just be careful, said Samui. Got it, said Naruto, walking out into where the other racers were. Standing on a podium in the middle of the area of the stadium stood an announcer along with a few of the royal people from the various planets in the galaxy. But one person Naruto spotted. Her, he said. His eyes were glued on the woman he saw on his first ever race. The race where he came first but just barely. The very woman that was in the form of an illusion on the crash barrier of the track. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the 40th Galactic Grand Prix. Once again, it is that time of the year where we see who is the best of the best in the galaxy. Many are excited for this and have already begun the betting for their favorite racer to win. One thing I can say, we've never had such a full house before. As you may have learned, this Galactic Grand Prix will be different. Each of you will be racing against one or more people at a time. You will race to accumulate points. First place is worth 10 points. Second is worth 5. And third is worth 3. No points for all other places. However, if it is a 1 versus 1 race, 10 points for the winner, none for the loser. And for 3 racers racing in the same race, 10 points for the winner, 3 for second place and none for third. Races with 4 or more racers will have the standard points being 10 for first, 5 for second and 3 for third. Bonus points will be awarded to racers who show skilled driving and daring stunts. To watch the matches are just a few of the rulers and monarchs from their worlds. First, Gira from Remnant. Home to Blake. Perfect, Belladonna. Titania, Queen of the Phi. And Tsunade herself of Earth. These 3 will watch these matches. And make sure to look good. This is being broadcast across the globe and to other worlds, said the announcer as the crowd cheered. Here we go, said Naruto, clenching his fists. After a few minutes, a screen showed up and showed 2 random faces being cycled through. When they stopped, it landed on Naruto's face and an elven woman with red-purple hair. Would you look at that, folks? Shouted the announcer. A straight-up 1v1 between Chain, the Crimson Devil, Amamiya and Mirage, the Sonic Boom. Please step forward, called the announcer as the crowd went wild. The 2 racers stepped up to the podium and stood there while the announcer grabbed a bag full of what could be orbs. Holding the bag out to Naruto, he told Naruto to reach in and grab an orb. Doing so, he pulled out a yellow orb. Handing the bag to Mirage, she did the same and pulled out a red one. Finding 2 opposing orbs like this, the announcer got ready. So it's a choice between Drone Massacre and Time Trial, said the announcer with another screen showing up. A pointer spun between the 2 styles of racing. The crowd gasped as they watched the pointer spin fast. But then it began to slow down until it landed on one of the styles of racing selected. Time Trial it is, shouted the announcer, and the crowd went nuts. In this style of racing, weapons are forbidden, however boosters are allowed. Each racer will be racing against the clock, picking up tokens along the way to freeze the clock. Depending on which token is picked up will halt the clock for a certain amount of time. For those who don't know, each token is worth a few seconds of time. For instance, a light blue token will halt to the clock for 2 seconds. Purple will halt it for 5 seconds and red will halt it for a whopping 10 seconds. We will now flip a coin to see who goes first, said the announcer, getting out a coin and looking at the 2 racers. Mirage, you have the call. Heads, said the elf. Flipping the coin, Naruto felt his heart beat extremely fast. He soon felt something pulse inside him. And just like that, time slowed down. As if he could see what was happening around him, as if they were all standing still. What was going on? The coin hit the podium deck with a metal cling and spun about on its axis for a few seconds before laying down to reveal a face. Heads it is, said the announcer. So Mirage, you have won the coin toss. So you have a say in who goes first. I'll let the Crimson Devil go first, said Mirage with the crowd going crazy. Chain Amamiya will be going first in this time trial, said the announcer with the crowd cheering. Leaving the podium and making his way to his sprinter, Naruto started it up and got to the track. A gate opened up and the crowd roared as Naruto revved the engine a few times before Kushina came to view on the console. Chain, this is a time trial. Drive like you mean it, said Kushina. Wasn't planning on driving like a granny, said Naruto with Kushina smiling. Good luck, said Kushina as she cut the link off only for Titania to speak into his mind. Good luck my fiancé. I'll be watching with great admiration, she purred as 3 lights were seen above the gate. First was red, second was yellow. Naruto felt his heart race. It never beat so fast like this. This was it, to secure his spot in this competition. The Galactic Grand Prix was about to begin. And he was the opening act. Go, shouted the announcer and the sprinter surged forth, screaming to the gate as the first race was underway for the 40th Galactic Grand Prix. The sprinter screamed forward, the thrusters opening up and spitting blue hot fire as the sprinter was launched into the gate that awaited him. Naruto floored it and shifted like a madman as he drove forward, the sprinter going from 0 to 100 in the space of 3.65 seconds. Moving through the portal, Naruto found himself in a mine. The echoing of his sprinter drowned within the mine as he raced along. His HUD soon activated and highlighted the first token as well as the time he had left. 2 minutes 30 seconds left on the clock. That time was impossible to beat. Hence why he had to pick up the tokens. Spotting it just ahead after drifting a corner, he slammed on the gas and sent the sprinter hurling towards the first token. It was a purple one. Driving into it, he looked to the clock and found he now had 2 minutes and 25 seconds. Too slow, hissed Naruto as he flipped a switch under his dashboard and brought up his hyperdrive systems. Look at that folks, here it comes. The very thing that makes Chain, the Crimson Devil, his trademark hyperdrive, reaching speeds never dreamt of, said the host as the audience watched the live feed. Grabbing the throttle, Naruto threw it forward. The thrusters opened up more and soon threw out purple hot fire as the revs of the sprinter were pushed into the red zone while the acceleration meter showed him reaching higher speeds. Now going at 350 kilometers per hour. The sound barrier was soon broken as the sprinter zipped across, picking up more freeze tokens as they came into view. The 3 rulers who were watching were rather impressed by it. But not for a certain black-haired, purple-eyed queen of the Phi. She kept her composure of watching the race happen, but she was utterly stunned and slightly turned on by how far Naruto was going to just win. He is rather amazing, being able to handle that kind of speed, said Gira looking at the footage and then turning to Tsunade. Indeed. I'd say he probably succeeded the yellow flash, said Tsunade before they looked to Titania. He is probably the most experienced person with regards to speed, said Titania. That may be the case. But Mirage has been known to go more faster, said Gira. Either way, he is putting on a good show, said Titania licking her lips. Spotting a rather narrow and sharp curve ahead, Naruto reached for the throttle to disengage the hyperdrive. But voted against it and returned his hand to be grabbing the steering wheel. Kushina and Samui spotted this and got onto the link with Naruto. Chain, slow down. You're going too fast. That curve will eat you alive, warned Samui. I don't care, barked Naruto. This is your final warning. Disengage the hyperdrive, hissed Samui concerned for the one she was crushing on. This is my race. I go my own way, said Naruto cutting the connection. Brat, hissed Kushina as they looked to the footage. Smiling as he reached for the brake, Naruto got ready. As soon as the corner came into view, Naruto swung the wheel one way, pulled the handbrake and then slammed on the brake. What happened was something no one had ever seen before. The sprinter's back swung out at a dangerous angle, the brake flaps engaged and swung the sprinter further out. But the handbrake was what really made it flashy. Seeing that the handbrake was tied to the thrusters under the car, the sprinter was thrown into the air and barreled along. Inside the sprinter, Naruto had his eyes closed. Time seemed to move slowly as he hovered his foot over the gas and his hand on the gears. Snapping his eyes open to reveal their red nature along with slitted pupils. Now, he shouted and slammed on the gas. The sprinter broke out of its barrel roll and sped down the track, picking up the next tokens ahead. The crowd went wild as they cheered at the new school move that had never been seen before. Even the commentators raved about the new move they had just witnessed. They even took to calling it the chain roll. Samui and Kushina had never seen anything like that in their lives. But for Kushina, she was having a few flashbacks. Back when her husband was still alive, she remembered seeing something similar to that stunt Naruto just pulled. But she couldn't think anything past that. Must have been a coincidence. It was not like chain was related to Minato, right? Gira, Tucson and Naruto's challenger, Mirage were all stunned and in awe at what they just saw. Naruto had literally done the impossible. He had just taken a sharp and narrow curve and survived while still using his hyperdrive. Is that even possible? Asked Gira shell-shocked. I thought it wasn't, until now, stated Tsunade. This man is just full of surprises, said Titania. Makes me wonder what else he has. The sprinter zipped across the mine, traversing the terrain as if it were moving like lightning. The engines roaring, the gears and pistons moving in rapid motions. It was incredible. But that was when Naruto's fun was coming to an end. A large warning sign flickered to life on his HUD and showed a caution sign. Warning. Reactor core heating reaching over recommended standards. Engine stall imminent, stated the onboard AI. Crap. Guess I got carried away, said Naruto as he reached to the hyperdrive throttle and began to slowly reduce his speed. But spotting the last token ahead along with the finish line being another gate, he clicked his tongue. Sorry my sweet, but you're gonna have to work just that extra. Last hurdle, home stretch, said Naruto thrusting the throttle forward again. Danger, 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 said the AI. I know, said Naruto slamming on the gas. But that was when he saw a massive 300-foot drop just before the gate. There was no way he'd jump that. Unless, pressing a button on the side of the console in the middle of the sprinter, Naruto watched as it transformed further. It was times like these that he had to use this one. Hyperdrive was just the start. This one was to only be used in situations like these. You could say it was a last resort. Warning. Light speed engaged. Do you wish to continue? Came the AI. Yes, said Naruto as he tightened his grip on the wheel. Light speed engaged, said the AI as the back further opened to reveal two more thrusters that came online by spitting the same purple fire. But as soon as they ignited, they became white. The speed of the sprinter reached even larger heights as the drop came closer more faster. Grabbing the handbrake, Naruto pulled up and the sprinter was sent into the air. The last token braking against the sprinter and halting the clock once more as Naruto disengaged the light speed module. Further disengaging the hyperdrive, Naruto drove through the gate and over the finish line. The checkered flash swinging violently as the crowd roared in praise as the sprinter came to a halt. The engine and reactor cores pushed to the limits, needing to be replaced and his sprinter once more retuned. Shizuka was going to kill him for doing this again. Opening the door to the sprinter, the roars and cheers from the crowd pierced his ears. Looking around the stadium as he looked to the cheering crowd who were giving him a standing ovation. This was why he did it. Why he raced. These moments were the reasons. The roar of the engine. The rush of adrenaline coursing through his body as he raced. The cheer of the crowd. These things were why he raced. But that was when several reporters came to him and shoved microphones and cameras in his face. Chain Amamiya. After doing such a reckless act that resulted in a new move to be created, and also setting a new best time for that track, what are your thoughts? Asked one of the reporters. I race because it feels natural to me. I race for these moments. The cheers of the crowd, the feeling of the race. The winnings are just a bonus, said Naruto as the crowd cheered more, further showing that he wasn't in it for the winnings. Chain, what is your secret? You've pulled off so many races and in all you have come first. Going up against a veteran of racing, what is your secrets? How do you stay so calm? Asked another. There is a strong reason, said Titania, who was seen walking to the group. It's because he knows of his skills. He doesn't have a death wish. He's just willing to do the reckless and life-threatening in order to win. He is worthy of having his spot secured in the stars of racing. The reporters soon gave their messages to their respective news stations, but not before Titania stopped them. There is actually one thing, said the queen before looking to Naruto in a seductive manner. The next thing made the people gasp and then cheer as hard as they could. Titania had literally grabbed Naruto by the cheeks and placed a shearing hot passionate kiss on his lips. Her tongue diving into play with his own. So, Titania, would you mind sharing with us the reason why you kissed Chain, the Crimson Devil, Amamiya? Asked the host on the one talk show on TV. It's quite simple actually. Started Titania, adjusting herself in her seat. We value quality above all things. There must be a distinct feature in our mate that attracts us. Before the gates opened, we only had a few other lesser races that we knew of thanks to our technology and spaceflights. But ever since the gates opened, our choices became more and more broad. I was only brought into power 45 years ago. And I was told to find myself a man to secure the royal bloodline. But it couldn't be any man. It had to be a man that was cunning, fearless, and above all, extremely determined, willing to throw his life away at any given moment. When I watched a race with Chain in the mix, I found the ideal man I wished to have as my husband. He is willing to do the impossible to get what he wants. I like that, so I set out to claim him as my own. Naruto switched off the TV in his room as he sighed while staring at the black screen before him. It had been 3 days since that moment where Titania kissed him out of the blue. Social media was still blowing up about it. It was crazy with the amount of letters that flooded his phone. Deleting them was harder to do as every time he deleted one, 40 or more would come through. Not to mention, but also the fan mail he got as well was out of the world. Several were from girls that watched him race. Some professing their love to him and asking him to go out with him. Then there was the hate mail from the women who were extremely possessive. Not only that, but according to Titania herself, she was 76 years old. In the age of a Phi against a humans, that was long. A Phi will live long enough to be the great-grandmother to a human. But on the other side, a 76-year-old Phi was the equivalent to a 24-year-old human. How long must he endure this torment? Ring ring. Ring ring. It was the phone. Turning to the machine, he got up and pressed a button on the console. A hollow screen showed up with his mother's face showing up on it. Chain, get your down to the track. They're beginning the next trial, she said. Remind me what position we're at now? Asked Naruto. We're currently sitting 25th in the list, said Kushina. So we just need to gain more points in order to advance up the list, said Naruto. You're not as dumb as you look. Yes, the more points we have the better. Now move it, she hissed, cutting the feed. Sheesh, this is not right, said Naruto, grabbing his jacket and throwing it over his shoulders and putting it on. Why won't she realize that I am her son? But it is my fault for not telling her. Maybe when I've won the cup, I'll tell her, said Naruto, heading out the door. Heading down to the garages, Naruto found his sprinter waiting for him. The hood open with Shizuka bent over working on the engine. Seeing her plump rear on display made Naruto slightly uncomfortable. The relationship between Shizuka had grown considerably, but due to Titania kissing him like that, the relationship became slightly strained. As well as the relationship he had with Samui. Shizuka was okay with sharing Naruto with Samui, but for Titania to step into the bunch added fuel to this strained relationship. Walking over to the female mechanic, Naruto gave her a playful slap. This caused Shizuka to turn around and stare at him. But after a few seconds, She delivered a slap to his face. What was that for? Asked Naruto holding his cheek. Just because. Hissed Shizuka. You and that bloody woman. How could you? I told you. I don't even know her at all. She just kissed me out of the blue. Stated Naruto standing by his statement. But you could have pushed her away. Retorted Shizuka. Naruto was at a lose of words. Shizuka had him there. He didn't know what to do when Titania kissed him. His mind froze and shut down. But if he told Shizuka that, it would only strain the relationship more. In time, hopefully they would get this mess sorted out. Your sprinter is ready, said Shizuka coldly as she slammed the hood closed and pushed the keys into Naruto's chest. Thanks, said Naruto sheepishly as he got inside and started it up. Pulling the sprinter onto the track, Naruto got ready as 5 other sprinters made their way onto the track as well. Welcome race fans and racers. This next trial is going to be something different. Let me go over the rules, said the announcer, host as he grabbed some papers. Boosts and fast driving is the object of this game, while also keeping your wits about you. The destination you'll be racing in is a desert area. The objective is to capture as many power cells as you can and return them to your base before time runs out. When someone has picked up a power cell, your weapons will come online. You have to shoot the other team's sprinter that has the power cell. The one who has the power cell will have to be protected by their teammates. In addition, a shield will be placed on all your sprinters. When you've been shot 20 times, your sprinter's engine will cut out for a 30-second time penalty. You'll be split into 2 teams. Team Red and Team Blue. You have 30 minutes to get as many points as you can. They are the following. Standard power is worth 1 point. Plasma power is worth 5 points. And the quantum power cell is worth a whopping 20 points. We will now begin spinning to see who is on whose team. Soon a bunch of spinning wheels were seen. 3 on each team. When they stopped, it showed Naruto being on a team with Mirage and Blake. This was going to get interesting. There you have the teams. Drones will now begin changing your sprinter's color scheme to match which team you're on. Don't worry, the color will only stay active for this trial. Good luck. And race as if your life depended on it, said the announcer with the teams making their way into the gate once the drones were done and setting themselves up to be by their base, which was a massive pylon that sparked a few times. Teams ready? Asked the announcer. The roar of the engines filled the area as the teams got ready to begin the trial. Listen up, guy and girl, said Mirage coming online on their satnav screens. We are here to win. Stay close together. 10-meter spread. Keep your eyes peeled for the power cell wherever it may be. We're taking this one. Got it? Said Naruto. Let's do this, said Blake. Go, said the announcer. Instantly, all 6 sprinters roared forward and sped to the center of the map. Ready to begin this trial and bring back the points needed to advance. Nothing was going to stop them from winning. But as soon as his sprinter surged forth, Naruto's eyes changed to become red with slits in them. But what was strange, was that as he was driving, he began to hear a strange voice in his head along with a strange red hue in the corners of his vision. Butterfly across the field. Rose of blood red color. The color of blood. Oh, how wondrous the sight of such tranquilizing feeling, said the voice. What the, was all Naruto could say. Something wrong, rookie? Asked Mirage coming online as Naruto's eyes changed back to normal. I'm good, was all Naruto said. Keep up new blood, said Blake as she took point.